Hey guys, it's Rowan Kunz from Study TV. Welcome to the exclusive access section of Study TV. You're watching this video because via Punch Tab Rewards, you've hit the magic 2,000 points mark. And so as promised, this is a short, roughly, about 10-minute video that provides 3 key strategies that you need to do, or 3 key steps to dramatically improve your performance at school. What you're going to notice is that they're actually not very complex. They're actually very, very simple things that you need to do, and that's good because it means at the end of the day, you should have a very, very high chance of actually implementing these successfully. The more complex things are, the more difficult it is and the easier you give up. So they're all simple and they're all easy to implement. So what am I going to be covering? I'm going to be covering 3 simple things. Goal setting, how to use it effectively and why it's so important. Habit development, how to do it, why it's important, why it's really one of the foundational stones of academic excellence. And finally, I'm going to be looking at intensity. So creating intensity in your study, and again, why you should be focusing on intensity of study as a tool of measurement of your effectiveness as opposed to anything else. So let's kick things off by looking at goal setting. One of the things that's really, really important is that you need to actually feel motivated to study. That's the reality, the hard reality of it. I was working with a student only a couple of days ago, brilliant academically, very, very intelligent, but is just incredibly unmotivated, doesn't care. And as a result, his results are poor. So motivation is key, and there's 2 types of motivation. There's extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. Basically, your extrinsic motivation is external things, external factors. So that's things like maybe your parents telling you, hey, you should study. Maybe your coach or a tutor giving you homework and keeping you accountable. Maybe just a reward that you've set yourself in terms of perhaps going to a party on the weekend. They're basic external motivators. So they're things outside of you that are helping you motivate and actually do your work. Then there is intrinsic or internal motivators, and these are things that come from within you, and they're generally things that inspire you to do your best. They're things that just make you want to actually achieve your particular goal, whatever it may be. So let me create a bit of an example. Has there been a time in your life when you felt incredibly motivated to do something and it wasn't because of an external factor, like someone telling you to do it? That's intrinsic motivation, and the reality is to excel over years 11 and 12 in school, you need to be extrinsically motivated. Yes, sure, there's going to be plenty of external motivators which are very important in creating a support network and helping you remain focused and intrinsically motivated, but at the end of the day, you need to be intrinsically motivated. From all of my research with top performing students, every single one of them who excelled had a powerful intrinsic motivation. They really, really wanted it. So I can give you all the strategies in the world to help you excel at school, but without intrinsic motivation, you're not going to be as effective as you can be. You're not going to reach that potential, and the strategies, to be honest, won't really have the impact that they should. So how can you develop intrinsic motivation? One of the key things that I often recommend to students is to take the time out, even if it's a day, 2 days, even if it's a couple of weeks. Obviously, if you're earlier on in school, it's easier to do this, to really think about why you're at school. What is it that you're hoping to achieve? What do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And this sounds really basic and really simple, and as I said, it is. You need to get an idea of where you want to go and what you want to do. Now, for myself, I wanted to be a lawyer. So I set a goal of getting into law, and that was my intrinsic motivator. I didn't need external motivators, to really kick in a gear. They helped, sure, but I was motivated. I got up and I studied, I studied with intensity, I created positive habits, all because I really wanted it. Now, how did I personally do it, and how do top performing students typically create this intrinsic motivation? Well, generally it actually comes from, number 1, picking subjects that they actually enjoy, that they're interested in. So if you're in year 10 and you're watching this, think about carefully the subjects that you're picking and what you enjoy and what they may lead to, because that'll help. But the way that I actually develop this intrinsic motivation is by powerful visualization. Now, let me give you an idea of what visualization is and how effective it is. Visualization is essentially when you are thinking about a future, you're thinking about an activity or a goal or something you want to achieve, and you're making it incredibly clear. You're painting a picture. in your mind. Now, the stronger and clearer that picture is, the more powerful the visualization in helping you become intrinsically motivated. Let me give you 2 quick case studies that look at the power of visualization. Number 1, pro tennis players actually visualize and watch themselves on a TV screen doing perfect shots, the forehands, the backhands, prior to a tournament. That visualization, because it's so real, reduces their unforced errors and improves their performance in the tournament. So it's quite amazing. Another study with sport, again with basketball, because it's easy to track the outcomes. They had 3 groups of people. One group just practiced shooting basketball hoops for a week. The other group just practiced visualizing and actually visualizing themselves shooting the hoop. And one group did nothing as a control group. And the interesting thing is, the group that was least effective at getting the balls in the hoop were the group that did nothing. But the most effective group were the group that only did visualizations of them getting it in the hoop. It's quite fascinating. So visualizations are important. My recommendation would be, as you take the time out to think about what you might be interested in and who you might want to become and what you want to do, paint a picture. So for example, I read loads of John Grisham books. I loved that element of law, and I basically put myself in the books as a lawyer. Now sure, it was a little romanticized, but it gave me a powerful visualization of the sort of person and the sort of work that I wanted to do. And that visualization, I could then, throughout the year, as I felt dips in my motivation, I could remember and bring back, and it inspired me. And it's one of the things that I found that top performing students do, and they often do it unconsciously, but they get a very clear vision of what they want to do. So that's the first suggestion I have. Set some goals by creating powerful visualization. Now, what's the second step that's required to create academic excellence? Well, once you've got motivation, the reality is that you need to create effective habits. That's what school is all about. If you want to do well, you need to be able to do certain things in a certain way that maximize effectiveness. Now, the problem is that most students look at that and go, great, I'm excited, I'm really interested, and they try to do it all at once. And that's the worst mistake that you can make. I actually, to test this idea, spent 3 months trying to simultaneously develop more than one habit. Now, I tried to develop 3 habits, and they were really simple habits. I wanted to wake up at 7 a.m., okay? I wanted to read for an hour as part of that goal. Then I wanted to eat 2 pieces of fruit, and I wanted to exercise 3 to 4 times a week. What was fascinating is that while initially I started doing some of them and I was motivated, as that motivation, sort of dropped off a little bit and I went through the typical lulls that you have in motivation, I started, not following it exactly. And by the end of the 3 months, I only made one powerful habit, eating 2 to 3 pieces of fruit every day. So what that goes to show is basically it's very difficult to create multiple habits at one time, purely because more often than not, it's just a little bit overwhelming to remember what you're doing, and it feels too structured and too different to your normal rhythms. So my recommendation is evaluate what you're doing at the moment, okay, and spend 30 days just working on that one habit. If you're starting early enough, and you're in years 10 or 11, it means that you've got 12 to 24 months to develop a range of positive habits. So you've got plenty of time. See it as a work in progress to get to year 12. See it as a point of developing these habits step by step. So how can you develop habits? Well, 30 days is the absolute minimum required to develop a new habit. So you need to stick to something for 30 days minimum. You also need to create accountability, and there's a great website. It's called habitforge.com, and it sends you an email each morning, which you can get to your phone if you've got a smartphone, which asks you, did you perform your habit the next day? It's a great tool to keep you accountable, and I recommend you use it. It's got a 30-day app, so you can actually keep you accountable for 30 days, and you can reset it and do it as much as you want. It's an effective way just to build that accountability. Use some external factors as well, beyond your intrinsic motivation. Maybe chat to a parent, a coach, a tutor, and say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Each week, can you just ask me how I'm going? Third, create a habit journal. Actually create a journal, write all the 30 days down, and then write what the goal is that you're trying to achieve, the new habit, and each day just tick off, did you do it, did you not, and then just a quick note as to why. Importantly, publicize this. One of the best ways to develop a new habit is actually to create public accountability. Post it on Facebook, do a daily update, you'll get your friends involved, and you'll find they'll actually bring a bit of a community together to create a powerful habit. So pick one a day. In terms of what habits you should develop, Well, getting motivated and getting some motivation is the first one. And I'm going to tell you another one in a moment as the third step. But beyond that, you need to check out a lot of videos on Study TV for some of the other habits that you should develop along the way. Now, what's the third step? The third step is to study with intensity. Let me illustrate an example for you. When you're training for a sport, let's say running, okay? What do you think is going to be the better way to train? You can run slowly for a long time, or you can run really, really, really quickly, really intensely for as far as you can go. What do you think is going to be better? The truth is that while both will improve your fitness and your health, running really slowly for a very long time will do it very, very slowly. It's very, very ineffective. While running very, very quickly for as long as you can go is going to be a highly effective way of increasing your fitness levels and your health, because it's about pushing the barrier. And likewise, when it comes to study, it's exactly the same. If you want to improve your performance, you need to think about how you can improve the intensity of your study. It's that simple. Now, what does intensity mean? It's going to be different for everyone, but what I want you to think about is to think about, well, when I last had an assessment due, and I was doing the majority of the work in the 2 days before, because let's be honest, that happens, how hard was I working? I guarantee you, because of that deadline, you were working your bum off, okay? You were working exceptionally hard. And that's the sort of intensity you need to try to recreate earlier on throughout the weeks of your study. Now, how can you do this? How can you create this sort of intensity? Really, 2 quick suggestions. Number 1, actually give yourself less time. If you give yourself more time to do something, you're going to procrastinate, and it doesn't give you any urgency to create intensity. So what I recommend is look at a task and then give yourself 20% less. That's right, 20% less. Set a timer in front of you and compete to the clock. It's going to be a habit that you're going to have to develop, and it's probably the second habit after motivation that I would recommend you develop, a habit of intensity. Set the clock and race. If you don't finish it all, that's okay. The point is that if you've increased your intensity by 5, 10, 15%, you're on the way to having significantly improved results, because you're going to be able to effectively do more in less time. Which, let's face it, in a year or 2 years of school and you've got a lot to do, doing more in less time is absolutely key. Now, the other thing that you can do to create intensity is to set other activities, maybe social activities, after. Because then the issue is, if you don't finish that work and beat the clock, you miss out on your favourite activity later on. It's a bit of an external factor that you can use to lift your intensity. Personally, I used sport. I played a lot of soccer and absolutely loved it. And I basically said, well, look, if I don't get my work done and really ramp my intensity, I'm not going to go to soccer training. Highly effective way for me to get into the habit of intensity. Believe it or not, after about 30 to 40 days, I didn't really need that external motivator, because I had a habit of intensity and I worked hard, I worked efficiently, and I got a lot done. So 3 simple steps. Get motivated. It's absolutely key. It's the cornerstone. Focus on intrinsic motivation. Focus on visualization. Number 2, develop habits. Stick to 1 at a time, 1 per month. Use Habit Forge, use friends, family, public accountability. Pick one habit. I'd focus on motivation first and then developing a habit of intensity. And that leads me to the third point and the third step to improving your academic performance dramatically at school. Develop high levels of intensity in your study, the sort of intensity that you typically have prior to an exam, and do it by giving yourself 20% less time, competing with a clock, and having activities after the event of your study to motivate you and create that urgency and that intensity. So, if you've enjoyed this video and you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. If you'd like to see more, continue to spread the love on Facebook or email, and just check in a punch tab. But I hope you've enjoyed, and I look forward to chatting to you again via video in the next couple of months. Cheers.